When you hear the word hell, a very specific image probably comes to mind. A dark, subterranean abyss, defined by burning fire and unending physical torment. But that fiery torture chamber, it's actually a surprisingly recent invention. For the vast majority of early human history, the afterlife lacked any sort of ethical judgment. The underworld was just a geographic certainty, a grim, neutral shadowland where you went simply because you died. Take ancient Mesopotamia. Early eschatological texts describe a subterranean fortress known as the House of Dust. Once you crossed its 7 sealed gates, your earthly rank meant nothing. Kings, priests, and beggars shared the exact same fate, condemned to eat clay and drink dirt. We see an identical concept in the early texts of the Hebrew Bible. The afterlife was a dreary realm deep beneath the earth called Sheol. God's justice was handled strictly in the land of the living. In Sheol, the exceptionally righteous and profoundly wicked simply slept side by side in silence. In these early, highly localized tribes, existence was fragile, and the supreme value was staying alive. The terrifying finality of a shared, silent grave was plenty to keep people in line. They simply had no sociological reason to invent post-mortem punishment. That dynamic broke down as human populations exploded. As small, egalitarian groups expanded into sprawling, highly stratified agricultural empires, human authorities couldn't possibly monitor everyone. This created a massive vulnerability to what anthropologists call free riders, people who reap the benefits of a cooperative society without contributing, especially when nobody is watching them. This visualization shows the problem. A small cluster is easy to manage, but expanding into a massive, chaotic web makes maintaining social trust a survival challenge. Evolutionary psychologists propose humanity solved this crisis of scale through the big gods theory. To make people behave, convince them they are always being watched. An omniscient, moralizing deity, armed with the threat of severe supernatural punishment, guarantees constant monitoring. It forces pro-social behavior even when earthly police are nowhere found. To hold massive megacities together, the passive shadowlands of our ancestors had to be systematically re-architected. The grave became an active, cosmic courtroom. Ancient Egypt was one of the first civilizations to construct this theological shift. They introduced the idea that your post-mortem destination could change based on your earthly conduct. This ancient Egyptian papyrus shows the final judgment in the Duat, or the underworld. To avoid being devoured and ceasing to exist, a deceased person's heart was weighed on the central scale against the feather of Ma'at, representing cosmic truth and justice. Sometime between 1500 and 500 BCE, the Iranian prophet Zoroaster pushed this concept much further. Zoroastrianism introduced a revolutionary cosmic dualism, an ongoing, active war between the forces of absolute good and absolute evil. Under this system, human beings were endowed with free will and required to participate in the struggle. After death, the total moral weight of an individual's life was assessed at a crossing boundary called the Chinbot Bridge. If you were righteous, it widened into a safe passage to paradise. If you were wicked, the bridge narrowed to a razor's edge, plunging you into a foul-smelling abyss of torment. These theological advancements weaponized the afterlife. The dark unknown of death was transformed into a highly precise extension of terrestrial law. As seen in this timeline of Judeo-Christian thought, exposure to Persian dualism and Greek philosophy triggered a massive shift in Judaism. The neutral, sleeping realm of Sheol evolved into Gehenna, a realm of final judgment and active, fiery punishment reserved specifically for the wicked. This detail from Michelangelo's Last Judgment illustrates how medieval Christianity inherited these ideas and hardened them. Early church fathers argued that crimes committed against an infinite creator logically required an infinite penalty, cementing the terrifying doctrine of eternal conscious torment. Over in the East, civilizations built an equally complex but structurally opposite system. In the cyclical cosmologies of Hinduism and Buddhism, the dead descend into a collective of hellish realms known as Naraka. These Eastern underworlds operate very differently. They are strictly temporary crucibles. Suffering lasts only until a specific negative karmic debt is exhausted, allowing the soul to be released for reincarnation. And rather than punishment handed down by a vengeful divine judge, the agony in Naraka is a mechanical consequence dictated by the natural laws of your own actions. Yet, regardless of whether a culture built a permanent prison of divine vengeance or a temporary mechanical crucible, the sociological function was identical. Hell served as the ultimate psychological glue, scaling human cooperation by cementing a fear of inescapable consequences. As we moved into the modern era, secular law enforcement and humanistic ethics gradually stabilized society. We no longer relied solely on the threat of supernatural torture to keep neighbors from stealing from each other. Consequently, the theological necessity of a literal subterranean torture chamber began to face intense scrutiny. Within Christianity, alternative models gained major traction. As highlighted in this breakdown of modern eschatology, annihilationism argues that an infinitely loving deity would not inflict never-ending pain. Instead, the wicked are simply consumed by fire and completely destroyed, ceasing to exist entirely. Simultaneously, the 20th century saw a massive secular shift. Philosophers and psychoanalysts stripped the underworld of its fiery geography and terrifying demons, redefining hell as an intrinsic, inescapable condition of human existence. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously declared that hell is other people. He didn't mean that people are simply annoying. He meant that the true agony of existence is being constantly objectified, judged, and psychologically constrained by the unyielding perceptions of the people around us. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung looked at it differently. To him, the mythological descent into the underworld was a necessary psychological metaphor. Hell is the terrifying process of confronting your own repressed traumas and inner evils. The dark aspects of the psyche he called the shadow. Whether viewed as a dusty Mesopotamian grave, an elaborate medieval courtroom, or the agonizing realization of our own psychological flaws, the concept of hell has never really been about the dead. It is humanity's ultimate mirror.